voice can break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silenced, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence the small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Politics is a blood sport. And tonight, we're going to go live to Stony Creek, Ontario, for a Pierre Poilievre conservative election rally. Looks like a standing room only crowd, huge crowd out there. They were wrapped all the way around the building waiting to get in. It shows that there is high interest in this election. I'm expecting pretty heavy voter turnout on election day, April 28th. This being, what is this, the second full day of campaigning? And the heat has been turned up. Jagmeet Singh in Toronto, he was talking about workers' rights, minimum wage, tax cuts. We'll bring you a little bit of that. We have Mark Carney commenting on foreign interference. suggestions that Pierre Poilievre may have been helped just a little bit, with his leadership win for the Conservative Party by a foreign government. If you don't know which one, we'll tell you. And also tonight, more fallout from that security breach on the Signal chat, where Trump's national security and defense team planning that whole bombing raid on Yemen invited the journalist from The Atlantic to participate. They were sending him all the war plans. And then, of course, he published it after realizing it wasn't just a spoof. Now it's a huge scandal, but how huge will it be? Will anyone even actually be held accountable? Well, there was a Senate hearing, an oversight committee dealing with this today. And Tulsi Gabbard really grilled on this, as were others who were on that call, that Signal call. It blows my mind. It really does. And the excuses, the damage control, the propaganda, the Trump administration doubling, tripling down, and we'll show you how they're not only trying to cover their butts, but they're trying to just cover it up. So stay with me. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, and we're going to dig in deep on the other side of this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV.
The entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm here, and before we begin tonight, I have to say thank you to May. I received your letter and your donation. Thank you so much. I'm humbled and extremely appreciative, not just for the donation, which saves the day.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media outlets publish these things simply are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks, we are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Check. Okay. I think we're back. This is all messed up. So what I'm going to do is, while I figure out how to fix all these technical problems, we're going to go to this live feed out of Stony Creek. Here we go.
A dollar isn't worth a dollar anymore. Groceries have gone through the roof. Bills are way up. Rent is doubled. Mortgage rates have gone feral. And believe it or not, there's a tax on the very air you breathe. We can thank the Liberals for that. As union members, we care for those around us and those that came before us. We take care of any extra medical needs through our benefits. We take care of ourselves during retirement through our pension, and fund social committees for our members to have an affordable social outlet. We supplement ourselves during times of unemployment with our sub-plans, during times of need with our benevolent fund, and at times of distress with programs such as De Novo. We don't need handouts. We need work, safe streets, a strong dollar, affordable homes, and the freedom to responsibly own and use our legal firearms. I was excited when Pierre was elected leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition in 2022. In mid-2023, I got the opportunity to meet with him while he was visiting one of our unionized fabrication shops, ES Fox in Niagara. A year later, he was my keynote speaker at Local 67's 125th anniversary gala. We met as friends in New Brunswick, and a few months later, we welcomed him to our union hall, where he spoke to my members and brazed his first medical gas joint in November of 2024. Sadly, a week after the anniversary gala, my best friend and business agent, Ken Luxon, was tragically killed in a motorcycle accident. Rest in peace, Ken. Within days, I received a personal phone call from Pierre with his condolences. And when we met in New Brunswick, days later, he reaffirmed that sentiment in person as we shook hands. That meant a lot. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. Pierre is the real deal. He is. He was one of the first voices in Parliament to foresee the inflation crisis long before anybody else. We all know that. Pointing out the sharp increase in costs represent an inflation tax, a sneaky way for governments to raise money by raising prices on the people. He has been one of the loudest and strongest voices in the past several years, fighting out of control deficit spending and tax increases. Remember that spending is easy, being responsible is not. He's ready to put the hard work in that's necessary. And today we face an unprecedented threat to our jobs from the South. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have weakened Canada, and now his hand-picked replacement is a corporate sellout of the worst kind. Moved his company to the States mere months ago for profit off the backs of the workers. Shame is right. A company known for union busting, a sellout banker does not stand for Canadian workers. And now he's talking about increasing taxes on the steel industry here in Hamilton, threatening thousands of jobs, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. However, Canadian workers have great hope and great promise in Pierre, who's been working closely with trade unions like mine, learning about our issues across the country. Pierre has earned my confidence and his hard work and pro-worker agenda. It's time that Canadian workers were put first for a change. That is why I can proudly say, from Telephone City to Steel Town to the Falls, the journeyman apprentices, represented by the United Association Local 67, endorsed Pierre Poilievre for Prime Minister. We have your back, brother. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next Common Sense Member of Parliament for Hamilton East Stony Creek, Ned Couric.
Okay, so this rally is going on. It'll be a little while before Poilievre comes up on stage. We're going to dig into some of the other news stories of the day before we get into the rally there. But we'll come back live to it in a moment. And one of the big stories tonight is this whole thing with the Signal security breach, the planning session that took place on this Signal app, and the journalist, Mr. Goldberg from The Atlantic, being included in this, maybe by accident, and all this sensitive information shared with him and then published afterward. A major security breach, and to help us make sense of that tonight, we're going to bring Mike McCarrick in just a moment so that he can kind of lay this out with some degree of expertise, because of course with his military background, he knows, I think better than I do certainly, what the rules are and the ethics and the law down in the U.S. as it relates to these, I would say, newbies running the government down there. What a fiasco. Let's take a little break. We'll come back, and Mike will join us on the other side. And I'll keep tabs on this rally with Pierre Poilievre. We have a lot of other election stuff to dig into tonight as well. But this whole thing, it's major. It's international in scope. The stability of the world peace really, it depends on these people. And I can't believe this has even happened. Stay with me. We'll be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's bring Mike in. Welcome back, sir.
Big one. Hey, how are you tonight, Rick?
I am fine. I know that you were rushing to get here. I appreciate you joining us tonight to help us figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I've been repairing storm damage all day too. So.
Oh, you had a big storm down there?
Yeah, golf ball size hail. So, dealing with stuff in the yard and house. Nothing like taping up on the entire side of your house for all the hail hits.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's fine. There are people that I know I'm close to that are going through worse right now. So,
man. So I watched some of this Senate hearing today from this oversight committee. They were really grilling some of the people who were,
as they should.
Yes, in on this signal call where we had Mr. Goldberg from The Atlantic, the journalist, who was invited to come in on this thing somehow, and they ended up sending him all this. I would say it's classified information. It's a plan for a bombing raid on Yemen, and he gains access to it because he's included in the meeting. This boggles my mind. And I can't believe that they're even doing this on a commercial communication application like Signal, which is not really secure. Certainly not when you're dealing with something of at this level, national security and military planning. Am I off base here?
No, you're completely on base, and you probably missed several ways that this was wrong. I can tell you from experience that if I or anybody that I worked with, certainly if anybody that I supervised, had done anything remotely this stupid, I would have nailed them to the wall. And if it was me, I would have known that I deserved to be nailed to the wall. Because in military circles, when you're talking about, I've mentioned this on your program, but it's been months and months, that the military is a difficult business where you, like, if we make a mistake tonight, if I say the wrong word, maybe I'd have to retract it. Maybe I just have to fix it right. Or, maybe I just babble for a little bit and nobody gets hurt, right? But in the military life, if you make a mistake, somebody dies. But here's the thing. In the military life, if you're doing your job properly, people die. If you make a mistake, the wrong people die. Your friends die. And if your friends are dying because of your mistake, or in this case of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, if the people in the military who are under his direct command, if they are dying because he was an idiot, then literally it's his fault. Every single American that would die is 100% his fault. So we can dig into any matter of aspect of this. I know that they were shucking and jiving on the Senate floor today. DNI Gabbard and CIA's Director Ratcliffe and a few other people that were there was just a train wreck. They were trying to defend the indefensible. I think Gabbard is a former officer. She might or might not still be a reservist. But she had some serious rank. If I remember correctly, she was a light colonel. And she should know better. One of the truisms that the military tries to live by. So if I was at my rank, if I had screwed up, I would have been in big trouble because my rank had real authority to it. I should have known better. One of those things, I'd been around the block more than once. And I literally should have known better if I screwed up this bad. A very junior person, if they screw up, might or might not be. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on purposefulness. Gabbard mentioned this a little bit, but when you're at her level, I'm sorry, there's no excuse. You should know better, and if you don't, you should be in trouble. If you pull up the UCMJ again, Clause 3 of Article 99 of this is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. In the United States military, I'm retired, so the military members of the United States live under a far stricter set of laws, and the, sorry, I got a pop up there. And the Uniform Code of Military Justice is part of that. You can tell at the top it's part of Title 10 of the United States Code of Law. So it's part of the normal law. It's passed by Congress and all that kind of stuff. Look at number 3 there. It says through disobedience, neglect, or intentional misconduct, if you endanger the safety of any such command, unit, place, or military property, you are considered, and this is in a combat situation or anything involving a combat situation, you are considered to be behaving badly before the enemy, and that's huge in the military. There were certain circumstances where I, as an NCO, a sergeant, if I was in combat and somebody behaved badly enough, cowardice, things like that, in the face of the enemy, I was within my legal authority to pull out my sidearm and shoot him in the head, because you can't allow that in the face of the enemy. That's how seriously that the military takes this. That I was a middle grade sergeant, and I had that authority while I was deployed. If you go all the way down on here, you can see not all the way down, but go down a little bit if this is scrollable. Look at the shall be punished by death or any such other punishment as a court martial may direct. So that would be pretty much anything from you screwed up a little bit and we're going to have to smack you a little bit, all the way up to you're going up in front of a firing squad, or in extreme circumstances, I'm shooting you right now. So that's how seriously this is taken. This is not BS. This is not something that you can tap dance around. This is not something that you can excuse away with politics. This is serious business. When we do our job right, people die. When you screw up, the wrong people die. And if your friends die because you screwed up, you are responsible. That's why they take this so seriously.
Yes.
They are not fooling around. So part of the question regarding that, the signal chat, is whether it was classified or not. 100% it was classified while they were talking about it. I think they are doing a post hoc rationalization saying, oh, really? No, it was unclassified. And honestly, some of those people do have declassification authority. Secretary of Defense might or might not. The president certainly does. And if it comes out of the White House that it was unclassified, then he has that authority. But the problem is that this is after the fact, and that there's more layers to this, and that whether or not it is classified now is beside the point. So it was definitely classified then. There was no ruling that it wasn't. Senator Kelly, in part of, was it Senator Kelly or Senator Bennett? One of those two was making this point in the Senate hearing today. Where
yeah, I've got the clip here, I think. Let me see if this is the right one. Where they're really grilling.
They're hammering them
Gabbard.
like they should.
Yeah.
Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember, when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Man, I have serious doubts about anyway.
So yeah, she was a little bobbing and weaving on the classified part. That's not the point. So when you're dealing with this is before a kinetic attack, which is a little bit euphemistic, but it is before that we sent armed airplanes into harm's way, into defended airspace to drop lethal weapons on a declared enemy. Whether or not you consider the signal chat classified after the fact, that has different ramifications, because if it's unclassified, it can now be in the Public Presidential Records Act and all the rest. But the thing is that the journalist has the goods. He has the targeting information. He has the flight times. He has the order of targets. He has the aircraft involved. So you are talking about real people. You are talking about real ships. You are talking about real weapons. You are talking about real pilots in harm's way. If this had come out before the fact and the Houthis knew where the American jets were, they could have shot at them because they knew they were coming. And if you know somebody's coming, you get to ambush them. So this is serious business. So whether it's classified or not is completely beside the point, because you had military members in harm's way, and there are other. Senator Kelly brought some of this up, and if people in Canada do not know who Senator Mark Kelly is, Mark Kelly is a retired United States Navy captain. He was a combat pilot that flew, I'd like to say, 36 combat missions in the first Gulf War in 1991. After that, he became an astronaut. He flew 5 space missions, and he was the commander of 2 of them. So Navy captain is a very high rank. It's the last rank before you actually get your first star as an admiral. And a Navy captain, the commander of an aircraft carrier that costs over $10 billion is a Navy captain. The $5 to $6 billion destroyers are only lieutenant colonels. They are 1 rank under a captain. So that gives you the seriousness of his rank, where somebody with his rank is in charge of the ship itself. Just the ship is worth more than $10 billion. The 80 aircraft air complement, that's $100 million per aircraft. All of the 5,000 people aboard the aircraft carrier, that is the scope of the responsibility for his rank. He knows what he's talking about. He mentioned things that I was going to bring up. I'm glad he did. He mentioned something called a SCIF or a CUI, or OPSEC, and these, of course, are military acronyms. A SCIF is a secured classified information facility. It's been hardened against any sort of espionage, whether it's acoustic or electronic or human. So it is a secure location where you can discuss things openly and freely without fear of it getting out. A SCIF is a place where you can't even take your phone into. You have to leave it in a locked cabinet outside of the room. And if you happen to have a phone with you, that's big trouble. Just having your phone with you in a SCIF, talking about OPSEC and CUI, is a big deal. You will get hammered. And somebody with Tulsi Gabbard's rank, her military rank, she would get hammered hard. She would be gone. She would be out of uniform. She would have lost rank. She would have been hammered hard. For something like this, she might lose her pension. She might even go to jail. CUI is controlled unclassified information. That is one why the classification post hoc after the fact declassifying doesn't matter. Because before a military action, whether it's classified or not, because some things are not, so like the pilot of the jet is not necessarily classified information. The time of the takeoff from the aircraft carrier is not necessarily classified information, but it is controlled unclassified information, and it falls under OPSEC, and OPSEC is OPSEC, that is operational security. And that is, like I said, you practice OPSEC, you control CUI to prevent the wrong people dying, to keep your friends safe. Controlled unclassified information is something that in the hands of the enemy could be put together, like I said, to form an ambush, where if if you knew the takeoff time of the jet and the distance of where the carrier was, you could guess when they're going to drop the bombs. You could set up an ambush. If you know the pilot's name, somebody in Iran or Russia can go after their family in the cyber realm. This happens all the time to the families of military folks. like literally all the time. When I was in Germany, living in Germany, I had at least one hacking attempt a day. So they track American military families. It's any of that open source intelligence out there. I can't even begin to stress how serious this is. That when you've got OPSEC for a reason, and you violate OPSEC, you're in big trouble.
It blows my mind. It's like amateur hour.
Yep.
These people, it's like Trump has gone around and picked social media personalities and put them into positions of real responsibility. It seems like they're incompetent to even just do this at all.
So Tulsi Gabbard, she had a decently high rank in the military, but she was never a general. She was never a flag officer. She doesn't know anything at the high level. She never saw that in the military. Or she did, she was a fly on the wall. So she's not necessarily prepared for it. Some of the other people are similar. Pete Hegseth was only ever a middling rank, and then he was like a second-rate Fox News personality. I want to go back to the phone aspect of this because I mentioned SCIFs, where this is where you talk about these things, because even if it's not classified, you don't want it going out. Now we can talk about it. The pilot might even be cleared to talk about the mission at this point, so after the fact. But before, everything's secured. And if you're talking about in a SCIF, you can't even take your phone in. Signal lives on your phone. So it is end-to-end encrypted. So technically, if you are not privy, if you're not the journalist invited to a principal's group chat, then technically the end-to-end is encrypted. However, the Signal chat lives on a third-party server. The United States government does not own Signal. That means that at some point, this information left the control of the United States government and the United States military, and it concerned a military action with American military members' lives on the line. I'm really angry, just so you know. The phone, the end-to-end encryption for Signal, of course, is owned by a third party, so they have it. The phone itself is much easier to hack than the end-to-end encryption in Signal. Has the phone been updated? If you are one of these principals, I guarantee you that there are Russian and Chinese and probably North Korean and Iranian assets in Washington, D.C. that are tailing you, trying to get any sort of electronic hook into your mobile devices, if nothing else. This happened to me while I was in Ukraine. I had my phone powered off. It wasn't this phone, it was 2 phones ago. I had my phone powered off. I was on the road between Dnipro and Kharkiv, which was kind of skirting the then battle lines. This was back in 2017. The front line back then was not nearly as hardcore as it is now. It was mostly a sniper and occasional artillery duel. And what happened is there were roving Russian electronic warfare teams that were just wandering around Ukraine with their gear. And I saw something I wanted to take a picture of, so I powered up my phone. All the connectivity was down. It was in airplane mode and all that kind of stuff. I snapped a quick picture. I forgot to turn it off. One of the dirty little secrets of airplane mode and turning off your cellular connection is that if somebody knows that you have a device and they can sniff your device, they can get into your phone. They can turn on your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth and your cellular. So the only reason I knew that my phone got hacked is it got really warm in my pocket and every single one of my apps was open. Every single one of them. So yeah, they were copying my phone. I turned it into the Air Force after that trip. But yeah, so were any of these principals' phones hacked? Could somebody clone that phone and now they can read everything that's on this chat because they literally have access to it, and the end-to-end encryption does not matter. So in the Senate hearing today, they did mention that, well, this was authorized for use. Yeah, that guy is blowing sunshine up your butt. I'm trying not to curse because I'm that mad. The sergeant in me is starting to come out. So Signal is, like I said, it's end-to-end encrypted. There's no guarantee that they're into your phone, but like I said, it's a third-party thing. The phone is a vulnerable device, especially a civilian phone. Military and government-issued phones will have much harder security built into them and softwared into them. I know this for a fact. I had one. Sorry, where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. I'm literally that mad.
Yeah, I can
so,
see that.
The phone itself is not authorized in a SCIF for a reason. I remember. So the Signal is authorized, and any sort of end-to-end encrypted chat is highly encouraged when you are out and about and you're just discussing normal things, because one of the controlled unclassified information and OPSEC is where are the VIPs. If somebody has Hegseth's schedule, then they can tail him a lot easier if they know where he's going to be, right? And they can put their electronic hacking devices into place before he gets there. So the Signal end-to-end is meant for just basic things like, hey, we're going to go to lunch, or I'm done for the day, or meeting tomorrow's at 9. It's those kinds of standard business office discussions that are specifically authorized for Signal. Discussing a military action, discussing targeting is not.
Yes.
To put it in a word. That kind of stuff must be discussed in a SCIF.
I'll tell you what, I need to take a little break. And we have Pierre Poilievre on stage now, leader of the Conservative Party here in Canada. The election's on. So let's just pick up this rally, because I promised this to the viewers for a few minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll continue this conversation, because this has international ramifications. Okay, let's get to Pierre here.
Carpenters, electricians, and plumbers who actually build the homes. And to add insult to injury, those carpenters can't even afford to live and buy the homes that they built. That is fundamentally unjust. Nathan, would you say there are many of your members that can't actually buy a home? The young guys, do we have any 35-year-olds living in mom's basement here? You don't have to be ashamed. It's everybody. It's normal now. It's now bizarre when you meet someone under the age of 20 that's been able to buy a house. It really is. It's hard to believe this, but 10 years ago, the average home in Canada cost $450,000. Today, it's almost double that. And worse, in big cities, it's well over $1 million. Vancouver and Toronto are the two most expensive housing markets in North America. Worse than New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, many other places where incomes are higher, population is greater, and there's less land to build on. We have the most expensive real estate in the G7. We have the fewest homes per capita in that group, even though we have by far the most land to build on. So tell me this, we have 10 times as much land to build on per person as the next closest country, and somehow we have the fewest homes. But what's the cause of that? Government bureaucracy, government gatekeepers. Now, let's be very clear about this. The same Liberals who doubled housing costs over the next 10 years will only make it worse if they are re-elected to a fourth mandate. What we need is a Canada First government who will bring real change. And this is my plan. First of all, we will take the GST, the federal sales tax, off all new homes of under $1.3 million. Build the homes. Build the homes. Build the homes. Build a home. Build a home. But we're not done there. We're giving billions of dollars of federal money right now to municipalities. The Liberals have encouraged those local governments to build up their gatekeeping bureaucracies that stop building from happening and give us the second slowest building permits anywhere in the OECD. I will require municipalities, as a condition of getting their federal funds, to speed up permits, free up land, and cut development taxes to build 15% more homes every single year. And then we will sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build beautiful homes. And you know something, it just warms my heart to think of the beautiful U-Haul truck rolling up with a wonderful family in it to move into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. So we're going to get rid of the taxes on new homes. And we're going to get rid of the worst tax of all. A tax on your energy, a tax on your food, a tax on your job. I'm talking now, of course, of axing the Liberal carbon tax.
Just so you know, I've got you on camera here, Mike. So.
Oh, okay.
Just welcome to Canadian politics.
No, it's all right. CPAC has a different meaning in the United States.
Yes, yeah.
I did read an article that...
The father of the carbon tax, of course, is Mark Carney. Mark Carney... He was Justin Trudeau's economic advisor while Trudeau raised the tax. And Trudeau passed a law to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a liter. Now, they did have one disagreement, just one. Mark Carney thought that Trudeau's carbon tax was not high enough. He said the tax should go even higher, and that in order to make it less unpopular, it should be turned into a shadow carbon tax. That is to say, carefully hidden so that nobody can tell when they're paying it. You see, if you just embed it, it's a very sneaky move. And so after having this, Liberals having this tax in place for 7 years, they decided that 30 days before the election, they would hide it at the gas pumps so that Canadians would forget about it. And of course, the Liberal media tells us we're not allowed to talk about the carbon tax anymore because they want people to be tricked into voting Liberal again, after which Mr. Carney, along with his radical Liberal MPs, will raise the tax higher than ever. Now, if you doubt that for a second, keep in mind that numerous Liberal cabinet ministers have literally said the planet will burn if you don't have a carbon tax. So you want us to believe that they've suddenly changed their mind 30 days before election? Give me a break. If you believe that, I've got swampland to sell you in Florida. Expecting a Liberal to stop raising your taxes is like expecting a vampire to become a vegetarian. And then there's the industrial carbon tax. Now this part, I have to give Mr. Carney credit. He's been honest. He wants an industrial carbon tax. And he was asked, who would pay it? And he said, well, don't worry. Canadians don't have to pay it because it will go on things like steel. And nobody uses steel anymore, he said. Has he been to Hamilton lately? I think he was over, was it in the Sioux? He went to a steel plant. They weren't welcoming him very warmly over there. They could only find Liberal MPs to stand behind them. Imagine how little you have to know about the economy to think that we can have a modern economic civilization without steel. Steel is literally the bones of a modern economy. You tax steel, you tax everything. And that is one of the reasons. That is one of the reasons why conservatives, a new conservative government, will put Canada first by axing the carbon tax for everything, for everybody, for real, for good, for a change. And then we'll move on to the next part of our Bring It Home plan, and that is to bring home our resource jobs for a change. Our minerals, our oil, our gas, our stuff has to come out of the ground. It has to be refined and improved here, and it has to be sold to other markets than the United States so that we get the benefits in this country and we stop subsidizing the Americans and the Chinese and the others. I've said that I'll kick that off by moving within 6 months to get permits on the Ring of Fire to unleash tens of billions of dollars of resource production right here in Ontario. Your guys are going to be working there. Your workers are going to be working on that project directly and indirectly. I think we have some LiUNA people here. LiUNA! We're going to have LiUNA workers on those job sites. They build roads. You know what? Stephen Guilbeault, Mark Carney's minister, doesn't want to build any roads. Well, we've got news to him. When I'm Prime Minister, we're going to rapidly grant more permits to build beautiful highways, and those highways will lead to mines, and our workers will be putting paychecks in their pockets. We're going to approve pipelines made with Canadian steel. We'll grant rapid permits for liquefied natural gas plants. We've got incredible natural gas advantages. First of all, we've got 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Second of all, it takes 11 days to ship from British Columbia to Asia. It takes 20 days from the U.S. Gulf Coast. Furthermore, it takes 25% less energy to liquefy a gas in Canada because it's so cold. The cold weather removes a lot of the electricity that you need to cool the gas into a liquid form to get it on the ship. Furthermore, we have clean hydroelectricity in BC, Newfoundland, Quebec that could power that liquefaction. All we need, when we ask the people who build these things, what help do you need to make it happen? And they say very simply, get out of the way. We're going to repeal C-69, the No New Pipelines law, and replace it with a new law that will allow our builders to get permits within no more than 1 year and ideally within 6 months. We will pass something called shovel-ready zones. Here's the idea. We sit down and we look at the places where good industrial activity should go. Pipelines, mine, power stations, data centers. And then we draw a circle around it. We grant permits before we even receive an application. We publish the specifications and the standards that the builders have to meet to protect the security of the population and our local nature. And then we get out of the way and let entrepreneurs lock arms with workers and get the shovels in the ground. That's how we're going to get these projects going. We have incredible opportunities, my friends. In the States, the big tech companies are all building these data centers. Meta, Microsoft, the others they're actually buying nuclear plants of their own because these data centers are electricity consuming beasts. That's what they need. We need them here. You know, this is to power artificial intelligence. You know, we have a lot of artificial intelligence in the government. It's a different type. But when you do a ChatGPT inquiry, it takes literally 9 times as much electricity as a Google inquiry, just for scale. We have an electricity surplus. The Americans have an electricity deficit. And that's why we need to bring that production and those data centers here from the United States. But in order to do it, we need fast permits for the LNG power plants, the nuclear power plants. We got to build the nukes. And for the data centers themselves, this will unleash massive $200,000 and $300,000 a year jobs for people who wear boots every day. It's going to boots, not suits. These are going to be incredible jobs for our people. And that's what our plan is, boots and not suits. We are going to, I'm telling the young people across the country, the best jobs of the future are going to be in the trades. Get yourself an apprenticeship. Do we have any tradesmen in the room? Right on. You know, when I go into businesses like this across the country, I did 600 events last year. And the businesses are no longer run by lawyers and MBAs. They're actually run by tradespeople who started working with their hands, and then they realized their problem-solving ability would help them run large businesses, and they're actually doing the best. But we need more of them. Right now, all the money is going to university and white-collar education. I got nothing against university. It's great. But we need to make sure that a fair share goes to the trades. And that's why my government, absolutely. We're going to bring back the $4,000 apprenticeship grant to help our young people with the cost of an apprenticeship. And we'll partner. We will partner with our union friends in great organizations like the United Association, like LIUNA, like the Boilermakers and others to build big, beautiful training halls that will train 350,000 young tradespeople for the future. Boots, not suits. Boots, not suits. Boots, not suits. But we want them to bring home paychecks to safe neighborhoods. Safety was something we used to take for granted in Canada. In fact, there are many communities across this country where people used to go out without even locking their door. And now, often they're afraid to go out at all. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are increasingly rampant on our once safe and tranquil streets, as we see increasing violent crime taking over in places where we were safe before. What is the cause of all this crime? Well, the good news is we don't actually have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive, right? A very productive group of a small number of criminals do all the crime. In Vancouver, for example, they had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times. That means that the average offender was arrested once every 2 days. I mean, that actually takes work. You basically have to be doing crime all day, every day, if you're going to get caught every second day. But if you took those 40 offenders off the street, you would have 6,000 fewer crimes. So right now, we have Bill C-75, the Liberal Catch and Release Bail Law. That's right. Catch and release bail requires judges, and I quote, to release offenders at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. That's right in the law. And so the judges do what is written down, and they release the criminals often before the police have even filled out the paperwork on the latest crime. Then they've got C5, the house arrest law, which allows convicts to do their penalties in their living room. Larry Brock, the prosecutor, is here. Stand up, Larry. Stand up. Larry, the prosecutor. Oh, yes. Stop the crime. Look at that. He was literally, you were literally a Crown attorney, weren't you? Yeah, so he's put, for 20 years, you put a lot of bad guys behind bars, eh? It would be a frustrating thing to try to do right now, eh? You'd be getting a lot of return customers. Yeah. I think someone said you almost got him, so I think he snuck out just under the wire, that guy over there. I'm sure he's a harmless guy, though. Okay? But in truth, it's funny that the joke is not really a joke. The police tell me that many of the criminals don't even try to avoid getting caught anymore, because it's actually more hassle to avoid getting caught than it is just to go in and go out. Anyway, house arrest means that if you're a chronic car thief, you can serve your sentence in the comfort of your living room, watching Netflix, or playing Grand Theft Auto, or walk out the front door and do the real thing all over again. And then you've got C-83, the despicable law that has allowed Paul Bernardo to move out of a maximum security penitentiary. My friends, if you re-elect the Liberals to a fourth consecutive term of soft on crime, you will have more chaos and violence in your streets. If you're ready to put Canada first for a change, Canadian safety first for a change, then you need a new Conservative government. Our plan will repeal C-75, the catch and release law, and C-5, and we will bring in a new rule. Repeat offenders will be ineligible for bail, probation, parole, or house arrest. Jail, not bail. And then we will repeal C-83, and we will send Paul Bernardo back to a maximum security penitentiary forever. And then there's the drugs, the opioids. We know what happened. Greedy and corrupt pharmaceutical companies distributed these drugs in our hospitals and pharmacies. They told doctors to tell people they were not lethal or addictive. They were just a harmless way to make aches and pains go away. Often working class communities where people had job-related injuries would go to their doctor and say, "What can you do about my hip or my back?" And they would get overprescribed. They found that these drugs brought them comfort from the stresses of life, but then they couldn't get off them. And the drugs spread far and wide across North America, and in Canada, they have killed 50,000 of our friends, neighbors, brothers, and sisters. More than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. The government's solution has been to provide what they call safe supply, a taxpayer-funded stream. Taxpayer-funded stream of opioids that then get resold to children as the addicts and the drug dealers use the proceeds to buy more dangerous fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than heroin. 40 milligrams of fentanyl is enough to kill 20 people. Just to put it into perspective. My friends, it is like mass murder. It is like mass murder when you distribute these drugs. So our government, listen, there's no way Mark Carney is going to tackle this problem. He said it's not even a crisis. He's not going to stand up to China, which is producing the ingredients that go into these drugs. Because, of course, he has massive financial interests in China. He's got a loan for his company from China. He will never act against China to defend our people. Well, I can tell you, we will put Canada first. We will stop the drugs with a real plan to bring our loved ones home drug-free. So here's the plan, my friends. First of all, we will declare that selling over 40 milligrams of fentanyl is equivalent to being a mass murderer. There will be life sentences for mass traffickers of fentanyl. Absolutely. Second, we will stop giving out tax-funded opioids, and instead, we will invest the money in treatment and rehabilitation to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Beautiful places like the Oak Center in Winnipeg, where they bring young people off the streets, give them counseling, group therapy, detox, physical exercise, yoga, sweat lodges for First Nations. They lift people up, cleanse their bodies of their poisons, repair their souls, help them get into a home and a job, and start their lives all over again. My message to anybody who's struggling with addiction out there, hang on, have hope, help is on the way. Thank you. And we will secure our borders. Right now, only 1% of shipping containers gets inspected because we don't have enough frontline resources. Meanwhile, the government is spending billions of dollars confiscating lawful property from licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested hunters and sport shooters. Which of course makes absolutely no sense, because if you've got a license, it means by definition you're probably not a criminal, right? Criminals don't go out and get a license to buy a firearm. It's crazy. It's common sense. Over 80% of the guns used in crime in Toronto, according to the police, are actually illegal guns smuggled in through the Canada-US border. So here's my common sense plan. We're going to have high-powered scanners that can look right into the shipping containers and intercept the drugs, guns, and stolen vehicles. Here's how it would work. You imagine the inspectors are there. They look at the manifest. It says that there's modular parts from the Faro facility in here. Faro, there's Faro. So it says that there are these beautiful modular parts inside there. But you look at the scanner and it turns out it's a beamer. Well, then you pull the beamer out, you call the guy on the VIN, and you say, were you planning to send your beamer to Turkey today? And he will probably say, no, I was going to drive it to work. I work at Faro. I was going to go in, but I had to call them and tell them my car was missing this morning. And so they said, well, it's okay. We've got it over here at the port. We'll give you your car back. And then you find out who booked the shipping container, and you say, you're under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. It's pretty simple. We're going to have watchtowers and 2,000 more CBSA officers who will have the ability to guard our entire border to intercept drugs, guns, stolen cars, illegal migration. And we will pay for all of this by cutting back office bureaucracy, overpriced consultants, and canceling the confiscation of the property of licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested hunters and sport shooters. I want to protect Canadians from criminals. The Liberals want to protect turkeys from hunters. I think it's pretty clear who's got their priorities right and wrong in this business. We're going to do the right thing for our people and the right thing for our country. Because it's clear, After the lost Liberal decade of rising crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, electing the Liberals to a fourth term will only make it worse. Instead, we need to put Canada first for a change by locking up criminals, securing our border, and protecting law-abiding people. But putting Canada first means also rebuilding the great Canadian Armed Forces. Madame Général, mise en œuvre. Général, come on over. Come on over. Here we have him. Great. The General mise en œuvre. Give him a big round of applause for the anti-woke General. Merci beaucoup. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much. You served. You had an even more distinguished career than he did, didn't you? Of course. Yes, and that's right. And he's still working for you, right? Yes. Okay. And you're making sure that he behaves himself most of the time. All right. We got to be realistic. This is a great general who served our country for many years. Let's give it up for all the veterans. All the veterans. Give it up for all the veterans. Thank you. We're going to buy 4 new massive icebreakers that will take back our northern seas. We will procure more submarines, Poseidon aircraft, fighter jets, and we will also invest in the first post-Cold War Arctic base for Canada, CFB Iqaluit. We'll also expand the cadets so that our young people can learn more about service, about practical skills. They can be mentored by members of our armed forces and by the great Canadian Rangers, whose first patrol will also be doubled in size. This will allow us to take back control of our Arctic, exert our sovereignty. We're going to take control of our economic and military destiny and show all the nations of the world that we are able to stand on our own 2 feet and protect our nation for ourselves. And our military will be guided by a warrior culture, not a woke culture. Thank you. I love you too. I love all of you. You inspire me. You inspire me. You're the great Canadian people who inspire me to bring back the country that we knew and still love. And that also means putting Canada first when it comes to immigration. We had the best immigration system in the world. An immigration system that welcomed the brightest people to come and fill jobs that Canadians couldn't do. All of the waves after waves of those who came and ended up on shop floors in places like Hamilton with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. That worked because we brought people in the right numbers. We screened to make sure that they were the kinds of people we wanted. They followed the law, they worked hard, and we were able to ensure that they had homes and health care and jobs because the numbers that arrived were consistent with what we could absorb. But after the lost Liberal decade, that there's been a massive change as the globalist agenda that the Liberals call the Century Initiative took over. Today we found out that the same Liberal immigration minister who implemented the Century Initiative to grow our population by over 1 million people every year is now running again for Mark Carney. If you think it is the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal ministers, the same Liberal strategy, the same Liberal agenda, the same last-minute Liberal promises, which will mean you'll get the same Liberal results, including on immigration. We've seen massive fraud in the international student program. The temporary foreign worker program has been abused by corporate elites that use it in order to drive down Canadian wages by bringing in excess numbers of people from extremely poor countries. Even international human rights bodies have pointed out the abuses that this system has brought under the Liberals. And the Liberals will continue doing it. They continue to stand by the Century Initiative. Just the other day, Mark Wiseman, who, along with the Globe and Mail, which actually sponsors the Century Initiative, Mark Wiseman is now advisor to Mark Carney, and Carney refuses to disavow it. My friends, our common sense Canada First approach rejects the Century Initiative. We will get back to common sense immigration, where we bring in only the number of people that we can absorb into our housing, our health care, and our jobs. We will end the fraud in the international student program, and we will make sure that corporations only use temporary foreign workers in the very rare cases when there are not Canadians available. Canadian jobs should go to Canadians first. We will reject all of these schemes, and I will ban all my ministers from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. We will end cancel culture and celebrate rather than eliminating our beautiful history. Terry Fox, our veterans, the famous five, will all be back in the passport. We're going to stand up for our history and be proud of our country. We're going to end this post-national ideology that the Liberals have imposed on our country. We are going to stand up for who we are and what we believe, and we're going to put our own people first. We will be a nation that brings home its jobs, that trades with each other, that looks after its people, that secures its border, that rebuilds its military, and honors its legendary past. We will go forward with confidence, knowing that we have the strength to stand on our own 2 feet, stand up to the Americans, and be a proud and united nation across the land. We will bring home hope for our people. If you're out there today and you are that single mother who's going to bed hungry, wondering how you're going to feed your kids in the morning, I'm here to say that hope is on the way. If you are that young couple desperate to buy a home and start a family before the biological clock runs out in your mid-30s, I'm here to say that change is on the way. If you're an elderly couple choosing between eating and heating and wondering what happened to the beautiful country that you knew and still love, I am here to say that both hope and change are on the way. We will go. We will not be a nation of tax collectors and toll masters, of bureaucrats and busybodies, of gatekeepers and grandees, rulers and rule makers. No, we are a country of explorers and entrepreneurs, of artists and adventurers, of workers and warriors, of patriots and pioneers, a proud nation, a united nation bound together by the Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life on a safe street in a beautiful house protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Well, there it is. The election continues. So let's pull this down. You're here, you're American, you're listening to all of this tonight. Your mic is muted, by the way, in case you've forgotten. What does, as an American, what do you think of that with all of this 51st state talk and your perspective? Are people in the states even talking about this? Are they aware? How does that, what do you think of what he just said?
I'm trying to figure out how much I want to pick on Canada right now. It would be very good-natured for me. But no, what I was reading earlier today was that if there's one thing that Trump's managed to do is that he managed to unite Canada in opposition to him. So there's that.
This sort of, there is this whole element up here that is very pro-Trump. So,
well, I was reading that so it would be normal for Trudeau's party to, I mean, he's been in power for what, 10-ish years, a decade-ish.
Yep.
And he was the leader through various crises, and especially COVID in the aftermath, and just worldwide, you know, Canada was kind of due for a change in government, and that's just kind of the way it works on that kind of a thing. But I was reading that they went from a 25-point deficit to the possibility that they're going to win a majority.
Well, today, the most recent poll from, I think it's Nanos, came out. They're leading the Conservatives by about 6 points. So it's very close.
Which is a little astonishing to me. But I'll be honest, what I was hearing from that guy, I mean, your Conservatives are a lot saner than ours. At least that guy sounded like it was to me. It's been a while since I've been able to stomach the American Conservatives, but mainly pre-Trump was the last time that I was able to stomach American Conservatives. The John McCain I was always a fan of. Mitt Romney I couldn't have voted for, but I at least knew that he was a decent guy. That if he had won, that I wasn't, afraid for my nation. But it changed in the states. There's part of the states that are very much concerned about Canada on a daily basis. Certainly any of those states that are under the potential cutoff of electricity, people involved in the oil industry that refine Canadian petroleum, all that kind of stuff, those people are paying close attention to it. You probably got Lockheed's attention with the F-35 thing. There's people in America paying attention.
In fact, today the Liberal government canceled all the subsidies for Tesla, and they're blocking the company from having access to any more government money.
Well, and that hits them where it hurts. I know there's a lot of ideas for in helping the environment, which I was kind of an outdoor. I grew up in Colorado, so I was always a mountain kid, outdoorsy. One of my favorite things to do on the planet is hike through the Rocky Mountains. It's my happy place. But so I've always been a bit of an environmentalist, but there's like a lot of good ideas that didn't really work out in practice. So the guy talking about the carbon tax, I found a little bit interesting. And if you connect that to Elon Musk, it's not that the basic tech, the execution of the tech for the Tesla cars is pretty bad. The quality control is bad, but the basic tech is actually pretty good. But Tesla and Elon Musk have made most of their money from government subsidies, and the carbon offsets, where they can sell their carbon offsets to people like Ford or whoever wants to buy them. that's where Tesla's made the majority of their money. So Canada going after Tesla's government subsidies is hitting them where it hurts. So I don't know how people are paying attention to that, but that's actually kind of big news. I did like what that guy had to say. I'm sorry, I'm not hip to your people. I'm just getting used to Mark Carney. But
just say A, and you're right. You're in. Yeah, that's right.
I did watch that movie. But what he was saying about the Canadian military is overdue. I'm hoping the Liberals jump on that as well. While I was listening to that guy's speech, because he was talking about rebuilding the Canadian military and all that, I tried to find a NATO equivalent to Canada without comparing it to one of the states, because comparing it to a state in the United States is a little bit weird because we're not independent. So you guys are roughly Texas. You're in between Texas and California. So you're somewhere in our top 3 or 4, which is California, Texas, New York, and Florida are 4 biggest states, and by population. But you guys are very close. You're a bit bigger than Poland in as terms of sovereign NATO nations, and Poland is possibly the most powerful military in Europe right now. They know the score. They've been rebuilding their military for, what year is it? 2025. I'd like to say the late 90s, but it might have been the early aughts where they really started getting serious about rebuilding their military. So they've been at it for a while. If you look at the percentage of GDP for NATO nations that they spend on their military, Poland is higher than the United States. They're above 4% at this point. And their purchasing power in the Big Mac index, you're more of an economist than I am, but the dollars that they spend, at least inside of Poland, go further than say the United States or Canada, which USA and Canada are roughly equal on their purchasing power. But Canada, I think, I had it up. No, that's Mark Carney. Canada only has less than 70,000 active duty personnel in their military, which is wow. The Poland has almost 300,000, just as comparison, and Canada has more people than Poland. So your economy's bigger. I think you guys need a bigger military.
Yeah, we're still living with trying to live off the peace dividend.
Yeah, and you weren't alone in nations. And if you catch me on a different day, we could talk about the problems that America's having with the peace dividend, because back in 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine the first time, the United States under President Obama took a very hard look at our military, because post 9/11 we fought in Afghanistan and then Iraq, and then the other hot spots, the pirates off the Horn of Africa, all those places. We fought that on basically the post-Cold War grossly reduced military budget. We increased it a little bit, but in terms of real adjusted inflation dollars, we're still underneath the 1980s in the Cold War. So the United States has its problems. President Obama took a look at the United States military when Russia became an obvious threat, and said, we're not ready. Our people are tired. Our gear is even more tired. So when President Trump unveiled the next generation 6th gen fighter contract that was awarded to Boeing a day or two ago, might have been yesterday, that program started out in a study in 2014 for a replacement for the F-22. So that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at it. Evidently, Lockheed and Boeing have been flying prototypes, one of them since 2019, the other one since 2021. So these have been flying and test flying in secret for a while. But yeah, that would be a bit of an extension on our last conversation about fighter jets and the timeline that if Canada chose to go with a jet that's not yet in production, We've been test flying our 6th-generation jet since 2019, and we might see the first jet in 2028, maybe, in terms of a jet that actually is capable of combat.
Yeah, I see Britain has one as well. I was watching a video about
Well,
what
they
they're
claim
working on as well. Yeah, so
their Su-57 that they claim is a Wunderjet. It was in the new Top Gun Maverick movie, and it on paper might be agile. That's a separate discussion. The test jets were built very lightly, and in the middle of the testing program, they didn't even finish the testing program, but they were built so lightly because their jet engines lacked the thrust that even just in the testing program, they were worn out. They had to actually ground their test articles because they couldn't finish the testing because they were so lightly built. So the actual combat versions of those jets are not going to be nearly as agile as the test products. So yeah, Russia has at this point, a 40-year history of promising these Wunder weapons, and they just don't deliver. So they've been working on the Su-57 for 25 years.
Are you talking?
30 years.
Did you mean Britain, or you said Russia?
The Russia. Did you? I thought you said.
No, I'm talking
Russia
about Britain.
Oh yeah, no. The UK is working.
Yeah.
And I misspoke last time. I thought the UK was partnering up with Japan, and it turns out that the UK is partnered up, I think, with Germany, and I got that wrong. I believe the UK is partnered up with Japan, and Germany and some other people are partnered up on a different.
I think that's what I saw in the video
Yeah.
that I watched yesterday. Yeah.
And all of this kind of flips around a little bit anyway. The Eurofighter, once upon a time, included France, but France needed a jet to operate from their carrier, the Charles de Gaulle, and the Eurofighter was never going to do that. So France needed to get their own jet.
So let's circle back to this security breach thing, because we were only, hadn't really finished with that. And Pierre Poilievre talking about the fentanyl problem in Canada. I've been saying since Trump started going on about the fentanyl issue and Canada flooding the U.S. with fentanyl, I keep saying, no, it's the other way around. We're getting the fentanyl flooding into Canada it's coming from Mexico, China, a lot of it through the U.S. and then into Canada. But we're not really sending it back to you guys. We're sending it out to other countries. And then Tulsi Gabbard was questioned about this today.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those, it's funny how damaging a lie by omission can be, where, fentanyl's a problem and Canada has a problem with fentanyl, but what direction is it going and where is it coming from? And why are we threatening Canada? Why aren't we working with Canada? Or like in the case of Mexico, where we're getting fentanyl in from Mexico and the drug cartels in Mexico are a problem. However, the United States is arming those cartels because illegal guns crossing into Mexico from the United States is a huge problem. So, the fentanyl is killing people in the United States. American guns are killing people in Mexico. So they have a legitimate beef. I would be interested to see what the actual truth of the Canadian border with fentanyl and other things like guns or whatever else that cross.
I have the clip of her. I'm going to run this. It's short. And this will explain to people what we're talking about.
Is the IC wrong in its omission of Canada as a source of illicit fentanyl in the ATA? I was surprised, given some of the rhetoric, that there is no mention of Canada in the ATA.
Senator, the focus in my opening and the ATA was really to focus on the most extreme threats in that area. And our assessment is that the most extreme.
Let me explain what the ATA is, because people want to know. Annual threat assessment. Every year, an assessment of the most serious threats to national security is
and that was
published.
Supposed to be what today's Senate hearing was supposed to be about. It's supposed to be the annual threat. Turns out the threat is inside the room and the security breach from the principals.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. And so in this case as well, we've been hearing about, like, Trump keeps saying that Canada is this huge threat because of the border and all the fentanyl that's coming from Canada into the United States. It's like this huge threat. It's a national security issue. And here we are with this year's ATA from Tulsi
And it's
Gabbard.
not even on there.
It's not even in the report.
Is the IC wrong in its omission of Canada as a source of illicit fentanyl in the ATA? I was surprised, given some of the rhetoric, that there is no mention of Canada in the ATA.
Senator, the focus in my opening and the ATA was really to focus on the most extreme threats in that area. And our assessment is that the most extreme threat related to fentanyl continues to come from and through Mexico.
So the president has stated that the fentanyl coming through Canada is massive, and actually said it was an unusual and extraordinary threat. And that was the language that was used to justify putting tariffs on Canada. I'm just trying to reconcile those two issues. Is it an unusual and extraordinary threat, or is it a minor threat that doesn't even merit mention in the annual threat assessment?
Senator, I don't have the numbers related to Canada in front of me at this time. I'd like to get back to you on the specifics of that answer.
It's less than 1% of the fentanyl that we are able to interdict. But if you have different information, I would very much welcome that.
So I would be kind of curious. The American-Canadian border is notoriously open and unsecured on purpose. But because there was a big caveat in what he said, with 1% of what we've been able to interdict. So that is a big caveat. Now, how much is Canada actually responsible for? It, you can go into Canada and you can just cross the border and nobody's going to care, right? So how much of that is Canada? How much of it is just an artifact, assuming that it's bigger than 1%, which again would have to be demonstrated. So there's a lot of ifs in my statement there too. But certainly the rhetoric doesn't match the facts as we know them.
It just smacks of manufacturing justification for
Yes.
whatever actions he wants to take on in this trade dispute, this trade
Pretext.
war.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Manufactured
and
pretext.
even more, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I read it anyway. And I think he has people up here in Canada working on his behalf to try to promote that justification and that pretext through information warfare.
I'd be curious whether that actually is biting or not, but
It is. Yeah. Yes, it is. Yeah. And I think it's distorting reality again, which is largely what he's about.
Yeah.
And you said that the real threat was in the room.
Well, you had the three civilians in front of that table there, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and I'm struggling to remember the other civilian. But CIA, Kash Patel. Right. So you had FBI, CIA, and DNI, so Director of National Intelligence, and then the other two are more commonly known. All three of those people were on that signal chat.
Now, if in the old days, something like this security breach had happened, somebody's head would roll. At least one person's head would roll. But I get the feeling that, even based on what Trump said, in fact, I think I have a clip of him today.
Yeah, I don't think any heads are going to roll.
Yeah.
If he wants to have a sacrificial goat of Michael Oltz, who was the guy that the reporter, but I also don't think Democrats are going to let this go, and I don't think they should. I don't think veterans groups are going to let this go. You saw how mad I was. I guarantee you that American veterans are really mad.
Here, let's listen to what Trump said about this today, because I've just been hearing people people are making excuses for this on the MAGA side.
The main thing was nothing happened. The attack was totally successful. It was
that justifies something.
Took place during. and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag, so maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know.
But you are going to conduct an investigation. Would it be a problem if the Atlantic released all the text messages if they're not classified?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the military about that because, maybe you wouldn't want that. I don't know. I will say this, that from what I heard, the man that we're talking about, who's not somebody that I don't think most people have ever heard of, he found it very boring and he left early. He got off the line very early. So I can't speak to it other than that. So he's made up a lot of stories and I think he's basically bad for the country, but it's a failing venture, very failing venture. They're very upset. And a thing like this is publicity for them, but I don't think we should allow people that are very good, like that man sitting right at the end of the table who's done a great job. We shouldn't allow them to be hurt by it.
Yeah, that's not how security breaches work, but you're listening to a guy that got away with one of the biggest security breaches and storing classified documents in a bathroom in Mar-a-Lago. So I was going to say he was president for 4 years. He should know better, but he doesn't. He mishandles classified documents all the time. I will say that your average person that could be a great human being and the nicest person on the planet and your best friend, if they're handling classified information and they walk away from their desk and it's just on top of their desk, that's the end of their career. So I don't care who they are. I don't care how nice they are. If they screw up with this kind of material and they're not, the president or one of these cabinet people, they're gone. And that's just the way it is. That's the way you have to treat it because, like I said earlier, it's serious business. Lives are on the line.
Yeah, and this whole thing, and that reporter's a sleazebag, and nobody knows who he is.
Did I state earlier that the only person in this entire discussion that has been acting in the best interests and with the security of the United States and whether it's classified or CUI or operational security or any of that, that's treating this kind of information properly is a journalist at the Atlantic. And that's the only person in this conversation that is doing the right thing, that is acting properly.
Because he held the information back. He didn't release it while before the operation or while it was happening. He waited until everything was over with so
Before
that he didn't breach any security issues. And then he also took steps to conceal the identities of certain people who shouldn't be identified for safety and security reasons. So from what I've seen, he handled it very responsibly. The Atlantic is
it's a reputable news magazine.
It's an intellectual publication. It's like
dates back to the 1800s.
It's like, so this whole, I get that sometimes the media has been, quite often, has been pretty biased, either for or against Trump. But nobody reads them. They're failing. They're going out of business. The guy's a sleazebag. He makes stuff up all the time. It's wearing thin. It's more than wearing thin, honestly, especially now. This is not the right reaction. Somebody needs to be held accountable, and it's pretty clear that Trump doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking up the history of the Atlantic, and I thought I'd remembered Ernest Hemingway working for them in World War II, but he might have been working for Collier's. I'll have to look that up. But the Atlantic has a long history. I subscribe to the Atlantic today, so they might have gotten a lot of new subscribers. But no, they've been putting out good news, good in-depth journalism for a long time.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if the story sucks. It's like, it doesn't. The point is, they invited somebody without security clearance in to the conversation on an app that is commercial. It's not military grade. It's not properly encrypted. It is not secure. They're discussing, like, this is inexcusable.
So here's an example of how bad this is. I'll remind people that I mentioned about the skiff, the fact that personal cell phones that would be having this signal chat on them aren't even allowed in the same room. Excuse me, in the same room where these conversations are taking place. That's how separated they need to be. And they're even locked up in a metal cage. So, like, seriously, those cell phones are incommunicado. Metal cage is a Faraday cage. The signals can't get in and out. The one of the people on this group chat is President Trump's envoy to Russia. I'm gonna mess this name up. I'd like to say it's Witkoff, but it might be something else.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I think
he was in Russia.
Yeah.
While this text conversation was taking place, he had his personal cell phone with this signal chat. I guarantee you, somebody was hacking his phone. That's where we are on this. In comparison, and this is why it's so floored. It floors people so hard. Is that if you go back to the political scandals a few years back with Hillary Clinton, and she had her personal server, her situation was extremely different in that the phone that she used was a government BlackBerry. So it had all the extra levels for the time. This was, more than a decade ago at this point. But she had asked the State Department to spend money to set up a new server because Colin Powell, the previous Secretary of State, had told her to, look, you're going to need something better. I've been using my personal email and all this kind of stuff. And so she asked the State Department, hey, set aside a couple of grand, set up a better server, secure, and all that kind of stuff. And they said, we don't have the money. We're not going to do it. So out of her own pocket, she set up a server in her home. And if you are the Secretary of State, if you're a cabinet secretary, inside your home, there is a SCIF. And so her office at home was a SCIF. And she had the server in there, and it was set up for her email. And it was connected to a government mobile device in her BlackBerry. So you can see that she went to pains to make this secure, even though it was outside of the government. So when you're talking about the difference in what's going on here, it's just not even close. And just the complete fury that the Republicans and the Trumps had gone after her for doing that. And it's just completely
they made
different.
a huge,
Yeah.
that was a huge issue.
Huge.
Lock her up, right?
Yeah.
Lock her up for that. And now this, you take the journalist and the story right out of it. Just them being on that app, having this discussion is
like, what
breach.
idiot let that person in? Like, seriously, why? I mean, this does speak, though, to, I'm sure Canada has these protections as well, but because, first world, but the United States has these protections for what we call the fourth estate. We talk about three branches of government, and sometimes the free press is referred to as the fourth branch of government, because it's so enshrined in our history and in our Constitution and all that. This is an example of journalism doing its job. That this journalist today was a hero. Like I said, he was the person in the room that was trying to take care of the United States.
And I hear all these,
secure the safety of American military personnel in harm's way. And it was the journalist at the Atlantic that was doing it.
Yeah, and the same people who are, cheering for Assange and Snowden are now like, this guy's a sleazeball.
Yeah. Because Gabbard is a Snowden fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, this shouldn't be partisan. This is just about rules, laws, ethics, security guidelines, putting
endangering
people
military
in danger.
members in harm's way should not be a partisan issue. And the fact that they're trying to duck responsibility for this just shows who they are.
Yeah.
It shows the quality of their character. It shows the state of their patriotism. It shows where their loyalties lie, because in the United States, when you serve as the Secretary of Defense or the Director of National Intelligence or in military uniform or any of these people, you swear a constitutional oath. You don't swear to support and defend a party. You don't swear to support and defend a person. You swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which is divided government, all of our freedoms, all of our rights, all of the amendments, the legitimacy of the court rulings, all of this kind of stuff. That's what you're swearing to support and defend. And so these guys shucking and jiving, protecting their own heinies, loyalty to Trump above all, Trump above country kind of stuff. It's a little bit frightening. The level of how do you even put it?
Trump
the
derangement
level of
syndrome.
danger that they are presenting to the United States.
It's the true Trump derangement syndrome. TTDSD. Yeah.
There's a cartoon out there right now where it's just some random citizen holding up a sign that says authoritarianism, and it's got like, you know, the red hash mark, the circle. It's like no authoritarianism. That's just a random person in street clothes holding a sign. And somebody with like the MAGA hat, and they've got the Trump Bible and the gold sneakers and like a red cape and all that kind of trash. He's like pointing at him going, "You got Trump derangement syndrome." So that's the way that I see those people now. I'm like, really? So anytime somebody online mentions that, that's my reply, is that cartoon.
And I don't know if you've been following what's about to happen over in Greenland, but Usha Vance is going to be going. We had a couple of C-130 transport aircraft there.
Is she going as a civilian? I mean, I guess she could land on the military base.
I don't.
But when you land, I've done this as a member of the military.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out how this goes, because American military bases in places like Greenland or the United Kingdom or Germany or Qatar or Saudi Arabia or South Korea or any of the places we have military bases, that military base is, I can't say this with 100% certainty. I know for a fact that in Greenland and in Germany, it is not American soil. Right. That is in Greenland and Germany, it's that American military base is on Danish or German soil, and we just lease it. We're renters.
Yes.
And so when you are on that base, you are subject to foreign law.
Right.
And when you land at that base, you have to pass through customs. You have to have your passport stamped. I know this for a fact because I've done it. Where, for instance, when Americans back in the Afghanistan days, when you deployed to Afghanistan, usually you would depart out of Baltimore, not exclusively, but usually you would fly to either Ramstein in Germany or Aviano in Italy. And you would have to get your passport stamped because you were in transit in a foreign country on your way to a war zone. And then maybe if you land in Kuwait, Ali Al Salim Air Base there, you get it stamped again. You go to Qatar, get it stamped again. Go to Bagram, get it stamped again. So all of these. So I don't know how this visit's going. I don't know if it's official. I don't know if it's authorized by the government of Denmark or the local Greenland government. So this will be interesting.
And the Prime Minister of Greenland says this is aggressive and provocative.
Yeah.
I also
that's what
was
I'm saying is the diplomatic. What's going on here?
Yeah, and she's like, I'm going. She put this video out saying that she's going to watch the dog sled races, and it was this very diplomatic language. She's going as in some capacity, I think, as an ambassador of the United States, but she was going to have so much fun that JD Vance says he can't let her have all that fun alone. So now he's going too. I don't know if you saw this. Here we go.
Hey guys, it's JD Vance, the Vice President, and there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her. I'm going to visit some of our guardians in the Space Force on the northwest coast of Greenland and also just check out what's going on with the security there of Greenland. As you know, it's really important. A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there. And I say that speaking for President Trump, we want to reinvigorate the security of the people of Greenland because we think it's important to protecting the security of the entire world. Unfortunately, leaders in both America and in Denmark, I think, ignored Greenland for far too long. That's been bad for Greenland. It's also been bad for the security of the entire world. We think we can take things in a different direction, so I'm going to go check it out. Shady.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of that Reagan saying, "I'm here from the government, and I'm here from the government, and I'm here to help." This is like, hey Greenland, I'm here from the Trump administration, and I'm here to protect you. I just, yeah, I'm a little nervous now.
So the wife of the vice president is close enough to a state visit, but when you're talking about the vice president, you know, first in line to the presidency at this point, that's a state visit. And did they coordinate this with ambassadors? So at what point could Greenland say, look, we don't want you? And I mean, it's their soil. That's one thing that I was told when I landed in Germany. I was stationed there for 6 years. When I landed there, they were like, look, you're living in Germany and German law applies. And I had to remind my subordinates of that a lot. So can Denmark kick him out? If he starts, going around like a politician and saying like, Denmark's bad and all that kind of stuff, Denmark would be within their rights to boot him and, make him PNG. That's persona non grata. He's not allowed on Danish soil.
This is getting weirder by the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just with what's going on up here in Canada, with what's going on in Greenland, this is just, I don't know. I did see another aircraft land. I saw like a video of another aircraft there. It looked like over 100 Danish police departing.
Yeah, well,
there for security, right? For the visit. Yeah.
State visit. And that's why I'm saying is that this has to be coordinated with the local government because, like I said, Danish and Greenland law applies, not American law. So it's not like his Secret Service detail has legal authority there. If anything, they're mere guests.
Yeah.
And so in the United States, the Secret Service is a police force. They have all of those legal authorities that they have. They don't have those on Danish soil. They might not even be allowed to carry weapons. That's how you're not on American soil.
And here in Canada, there's a petition that is still open, I believe, for people to sign, calling for President Trump to be banned from Canada. So
and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, he said he can't come to the G7 conference in June, which will be out in Western Canada. Pardon me?
Would you want him?
A lot of people seem to not want him to come here. Yeah, but I've said, I don't know that that's really wise. I don't think for diplomatic reasons, you really want to tell the president of the United States he's not welcoming Canada. I totally get it. But nevertheless, try to keep order and good cheer. Right?
Yeah. Then there's like this balance when you're dealing with Trump where he understands threats and strength, but flattery will get you everywhere. Putin certainly understands that. Putin plays him like a fiddle.
Yes, we just need to do what Putin did. I guess have a portrait painted of him, of Trump,
and give it
or a P-tape.
Sorry.
Well, I was trying to take the high road.
James Carville came out with that again. And the governor of Colorado, when some journalist was asking, hey, if you could say anything to Trump, what would you say? The governor of Colorado said,
I guess Putin
what does Russia have on you?
When Witkoff went to meet with Putin to talk peace, whatever that is, I guess he did have a portrait of Trump painted. He gave it to Witkoff and took it back to Trump, and Trump was quite taken with that.
Now, to be fair, when you're talking, because Witkoff is the designated emissary of the president, those kinds of gifts are relatively normal. One of the problems with all of the stuff that Trump looted from the White House and brought to Mar-a-Lago when he left office in 21 was that he brought some of those gifts with him, like the letters from North Korea and some other things. He doesn't understand that even though they were addressed to him and they were given to him sometimes in person, they were not given to Donald Trump. They were given to the President of the United States, and those gifts belong to the United States. They belong to the White House and the office of the president, not to Donald Trump. And so, but these things are relatively normal. So that part doesn't surprise me. Like in the Signal chat, people were getting mad at them talking about how much they hated Europe and does Europe need to like maybe foot some of the bill for the Red Sea fight, Egypt too, and all that kind of stuff. And that's the part I don't necessarily have a problem with. The principals have to have those discussions at some point. I wouldn't have them on Signal, as we discussed with the security breaches, but I don't necessarily have a problem with them having that discussion.
Sure, although the tone
well,
was
that's
so
why you
negative.
don't want to have them on Signal.
Yeah, and it's just
I'm sure that harsh words have been said about many countries and many foreign leaders in various White Houses of both parties through our entire history. And those conversations need to be had.
But that stuff wide out in the open like that, I mean, things were bad enough. Now it's even worse. The relationship between Europe and the Trump administration, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Trust is gone.
And, you know, I was saying, you know, Canada needs to, last time I was on, I was saying Canada needs to buy the F-35s. I stand by that. But I'm also going to say maybe you should hedge your bets and see if you can find 20 or 30 used Eurofighters that you can get your hands on and into squadron service, like 2 squadrons. A squadron's usually 15-ish planes. And if you can get 2 squadrons operational of Eurofighters, even if they're secondhand and you only have them for 5 or 10 years, I think that might be a good bet.
Well, it looks like we've already paid for the first 16 F-35s.
Yeah. Well, and like I said last time, President Trump's not going to be in office forever. J.D. Vance is the least popular vice president in American history. So he's underneath of, you know, the Dan Quayles of the world.
Is that true?
Yeah, that was recent. The Nate Silver, he's the least popular vice president in American history. And he's kind of a piece of work, so that doesn't surprise me. But nobody wants him as the next president unless you're like the really diehard in the wool. But I know I got in a little bit of trouble in the last one for saying that that Trump is just a coronary away from not being president. But one of the things, it's a serious talk. So last summer, it became pathetically obvious that Biden was not really up for the job anymore.
Yeah.
During that first debate, it was just a disaster. It was obvious that he was just too old for the gig. I mean, his mind might be sharp, but he's going to lose his train of thought all the time. He's done. His best days are behind him. It's important to realize that in Trump's current term, Donald Trump is, if I'm remembering my math correctly, Donald Trump is 3 years and 7 months younger than Joe Biden. So at every point in Donald Trump's current term, he will be 5 months older than Joe Biden was in Joe Biden's previous term. So at every point in Donald Trump's presidency, he will be older than Joe Biden was. So just as a measure, Joe Biden had decades of regular exercise. He ate well. He was obviously visually in good shape. They made fun of him wrecking on a bike, but he regularly rode a bike in his 80s. So he was in great physical shape. Donald Trump eats like trash, notorious fast food and fries and grease and just nastiness. He doesn't exercise. I'm sorry, golf is not a sport and it's not exercise, especially when you drive your golf cart around. So he's fat, he eats like crap, he doesn't exercise, and he's old. So
don't forget the Diet Coke.
Yeah, but at least he drinks Diet Coke.
And he has a button on his desk that he punches. I guess it's like a red button,
which
and
is funny. So sodas are one of those things, even diet sodas that are supposedly 0 calories. So early in my military career, I joined when I was 28, so I wasn't exactly young, but I wasn't really old yet. But somewhere in my first 2 years, I would go for a run in the afternoon, 2 or 3 miles, and I noticed that some runs I would just get the worst heartburn, like after a quarter mile, like you're barely warmed up at that point. And I had to stop. I couldn't. And I realized every time that happened, I had a single Diet Coke for lunch. And so if I had a Diet Coke, I was done for the day, just physically. It was just that nasty to you. So yeah, I wouldn't say that his Diet Coke is exactly a healthy choice. Maybe you should think about some water.
He punched in the butt. He has a button on his desk.
Yeah.
Bring me a Diet Coke, chunk. and I guess somebody was asking him if that was the button to launch the nukes. He says, "No, that's for my Diet Coke." And
yeah.
And they must.
I don't know
they
if you brought
probably
it
bring
back,
it in
but
on
it
a
wouldn't
silver
surprise
tray
me.
and a butler, right? And
he's a creature of habit, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's back in his second term. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
yeah, it's true. He does have this button on his desk. It's funny. This is probably the most. This is the most entertaining presidency in American history.
Well, there's certainly a lot to talk about just in the first 2 months. But I'm a little bit terrified for my own nation. Canada seems to have become anti-American inside of 2 months. So
yes, and please help me with this and give me your observations on your side of the border, because we are getting reports of Canadians selling their retirement homes in places like Florida, where you have a large, right? I'm having people tell me that they've had friends come back from Canada, retirees, after being harassed by people who, after listening to a lot of social media about Canadians ripping off the United States, they're saying, "Get the hell out of our country, you Canadian." I literally had somebody tell me 3 days ago that they had a friend, a Canadian down in Florida, who was harassed by someone and they spit in their face because they were Canadian.
And I have no idea if any of
didn't
those
see
are true.
I don't know if it's someone told me that, so it's secondhand. But these are the reports we're getting.
Yeah.
What are you getting any sense of that from people on the U.S. side? Has all this rhetoric has it ginned up anger, animosity?
The Trump, sometimes they're called Trumpistas. We've gone beyond MAGA at this point. Like the Sandinistas from the Cold War, they're being called Trumpistas at this point. And you saw this play out, for instance, in the confirmation hearings for Pete Hegseth, who is, as a matter of record, an alcoholic. He evidently was fraudulent in some of the NGOs that he led. There was some allegations of sexual assault. He's just not a great guy. He evidently, he's got a Crusader cross, a Jerusalem cross, and the Latin phrase that translates to "God wills it," which is a Crusader thing used to justify the slaughter of civilians. And he's got the big tattoos going on. That has become in the United States in recent years a white supremacist totem. It was certainly all over the place in the 2017 Nazi Charlottesville rally. So yeah, anyway, the resistance to Pete Hegseth, even within the Republican Party, was real. And so Senator Susan Collins was one of the last holdouts, and they needed their majority is so thin, they needed her. And she was like, "I'm still deciding, I might be a no." She was getting death threats that the Trumpistas had organized, very violent and very loud protests at her home, at her offices, both inside of her home state and in Washington, D.C. People had gone after her family members, some of them not even all that close, distant family. So the Trumpistas are loud and mean and potentially violent. We saw that on January 6th, 2021. I'm not convinced they're a majority. I think that the voters that put Trump over the top in November were voting for him for economic reasons, for inflation, and they don't necessarily support this kind of stuff. There's lots of reports of people saying, I shouldn't have voted for him. And then, of course, the rest of us are like, what did you think you were voting for? He was telling you what he was going to do. But that's obviously the past now. But I think that the anti-Canadian voice, especially the loud and the potentially violent ones, I think they're real, but I think they're a minority.
Yeah, and
that doesn't make them less dangerous, because when you talk about 20% of America, you're talking about what, 70 million people?
Here's the irony: the people on the U.S. side that would have that attitude or perspective, those would be the hardcore MAGA supporters.
Yeah,
and then
that's
people
what
up
I was
here,
saying, the 20%.
And then you have these Canadians up here. The hardcore MAGA supporters are the ones who want to go to the States. It just seems ironic to me that you have, if you took a Canadian MAGA person and put them in the States, the other MAGA person would attack that MAGA person. The Canadian MAGA, the Maple MAGA person would go, what are you doing? What are you doing to me? But this is how stupid things have become. There's something seriously wrong, because I never thought in my lifetime I would see Americans and Canadians in this situation.
Mm-hmm. So when I talk to the people that are trying to push back on the Trump part of the GOP, because there are still, I mentioned Susan Collins, she might be a coward, but I don't think she's a bad person. Mitch McConnell's a coward, but there's a lot of good people in the Republican Party even still, even after the Trump takeover the last 10 years. So when people are talking about, even from the Republican side, pushing back against Trump, that's what we're dealing with too. We're dealing with the loudmouths. You're dealing with the people that are happy to use intimidation against you. And that takes a little bit of courage to stand up to. So there's a lot of discussions going on inside of the United States on how to push back. Trump is intimidating universities. He's intimidating law firms. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yes.
He's trying to go after news organizations in various ways, both publicly and just the rhetoric, but he's also going after them legally. And also not just in terms of lawsuits and stuff like that, but he's access to Senate, but law firms and lobbying and who they can and can't represent. And it's getting really insidious. So there's a lot of people starting to this is not okay. This is not what we signed up for. Even if I voted for Trump, this is not what I voted for. This is certainly not what America should be. So
and here's Hegseth.
Oh, this was before you play this. This is after the White House acknowledged that the chat was legitimate and real.
Right. Yeah. So it's a real thing, and then he's still trying to paint this as nothing happened. It's a hoax.
Can you
basically
share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic, and were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely from the beginning. And you see, we've been managing 4 years of deferred maintenance under the Trump administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly.
Why were those details shared on Signal, and how did you learn that a journalist was privy to the targets, the types of weapons used? And
I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
The NSC said it was authentic.
You have to question whether he's even equipped for the job. So part of the job that the Secretary of Defense obviously runs the military, but he also, if he chooses to be, the spokesman for the military. Some secretaries of defense, they leave that to an official spokesman. But just from him talking there, he's obviously not equipped for the job because he couldn't even dance around the basic questions very well. So, yeah.
That guy just comes across to me like I've just run into some 20-something-year-old punk in a bar who is basically just itching for a fight. And I'm like, I just want to get away from you.
Only has 3 or 4 brain cells rubbing together. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's equipped for the job.
No, way too much at stake for a hothead like that to be in charge.
And so one of their points was we want somebody in younger, maybe we want a fresh perspective. I'm all for that, not this guy. If you're going to get somebody younger in there and a fresh perspective, you need somebody that's actually capable of doing the gig. And if he can't even respond intelligently, coherently, and without being ruthlessly mocked, because he desperately deserves to be ruthlessly mocked for how he answered those reporters' questions. It's amateur hour. I'm sorry. I wouldn't trust him with my houseplants after hearing him deal with a journalist that way, much less anything serious.
No, he's just trouble. Everything about that guy is trouble. Stay away from him. Don't get associated with him. If he wasn't in that job, he'd probably be engaged in some criminal activity or losing his job because he doesn't show up on time or something.
He was involved with a couple of NGOs, and there are reports of being drunk at board meetings, financial fraud, charity fraud, that kind of stuff that followed him. He was evidently drunk at Fox News fairly often. But I mean, even Fox News, he was second rate at Fox News. He wasn't even one of the headliners there. He had some weekend program that I think only Donald Trump watched.
And look, I'm not even looking in the chat. I'm sure that people are like freaking out tonight just because we're saying this. But this isn't a partisan thing for me at all.
It's a competence.
Yeah, it's just, can the guy do the job? Is he qualified?
I mean, one of the things that, for rightly or wrongly, the Trump administration came in saying we want to. This was their rhetoric. I don't believe it. I think they're factually wrong. But the rhetoric was they want to restore efficiency and they want to restore a warrior ethos in the military. And one of the ways they're going to do that is getting rid of diversity programs and things like that. Where part of the point there is that they question the competence of people like the now fired C.Q. Brown, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who was a 4-star general and a combat pilot and F-16 and all that kind of stuff, and saying he was a diversity hire. Because he was black. But so they're talking about efficiency and people that were hired not for their competence, and then you got this idiot who was on a Signal chat and he wasn't even aware that the journalist was there. and he's lying to the journalist after the White House already stated that what he just told the journalist was wrong. It's just, he's going after the competency of other people, and he's demonstrating that he's a complete incompetent fool. Just on a very basic level. Like, I'm sorry, you got to be able to talk to a journalist coherently and present yourself like you can actually do the job, right? So that's not what I saw there. That's not what I saw at the Senate hearings. That's not who he is.
That was political, cover your butt rhetoric.
But it wasn't even good.
Aggressive.
It was ham-fisted and just complete. Like, you can do your political tap dance, and that's a skill, but this guy wasn't even good at that.
Yeah, and this was not. It doesn't meet the level of professionalism that you really need in that job. I can't think of many jobs that need someone that are in greater need of someone serious than that.
So one of the people in today's Senate hearing, I don't like him. I probably disagree with him on 99% of everything, but I would at least trust him to be competent, is Senator Tom Cotton. And he was leading the Senate hearings today. And he's a military veteran. He's a combat veteran. He never had any higher rank, but neither did Hegseth. Hegseth topped out as a major. Tom Cotton topped out as an Army captain, which is an 03, versus the Navy captain, which is an 06. So he didn't really have all that much rank, but he's a serious person. Even when he's spewing the political BS, it's obvious that there's a keen mind behind that. So even somebody that I vehemently disagree with, like on almost everything, I would say, look, that guy's a better choice. So
the clock is reaching the bottom of the hour here. So let's kind of wrap things up here tonight, Mike. What do you think the appropriate outcome of this should be?
Appropriate, or what's going to realistically
both
happen?
Give me what do you think is going to happen and what should happen. Start
What's
with
going
what
to
should happen.
is Trump is going to do what Trump does. He's going to bluster, he's going to project, he's going to blame everybody else. He's going to make stuff up like he did about that Atlantic reporter. He's going to slime everybody else and then pretend it's somebody else's fault. And either nobody is going to get in trouble, or in a few weeks or maybe a few months, Mike Waltz will slowly walk away from the job. That's the guy that invited the journalist onto the chat. That's what I think is going to happen. What should happen?
So you think Waltz will leave, but quietly, or
if anybody leaves, it'll be him.
Right.
But I don't. After what Trump said today, I don't even think that'll happen. But if it does, it's not going to be now. It's going to be in a few months, and they're going to pretend that it's not related. But I don't even think that's going to happen at this point. What should happen is everybody on that chat should be nailed to a wall, figuratively or in real terms. I think the danger that Pete Hegseth put the people under his command, the very real danger he put them under, completely aside from ordering them into combat, which he has the moral and legal authority to do. When you're in command, you have the moral and legal authority to order somebody into a situation that they might not or probably will not survive. And that's just the nature of military life. But when his own gross incompetence endangered them completely unnecessarily, and could have cost lives just through gross incompetence and just being an idiot, Hegseth has to go. He's not qualified for the job. He's demonstrably harming the nation. But everybody else on that chat has to go too. They obviously don't understand the basic concepts of operational security, controlled unclassified information, classified information, what a SCIF is actually for, and just the very real dangers that military people are in, and the loose lip sink ships kind of a thing, to go back to the old thing. Talking, even if you're being serious, if you talk seriously in the wrong place, it can get people killed. I, what should happen is they should all go, every single one of them. I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said about Susan Collins receiving death threats, and she changed her vote on Hegseth to get him confirmed. I don't think anyone in Congress, because the GOP has a majority in both houses, I don't think any GOP person in Congress has the cojones or the courage to do what's right for the nation, despite the fact that they swear oaths too. I think this is a real problem. And I think we're just seeing the start of it, because once somebody like Hegseth gets away with something like this, because one of the big questions is the only reason we found out about this is some idiot invited the journalist, right? So what other conversations are going on outside of SCIFs? What other situations are American service members being endangered because somebody's an incompetent fool? This is serious business, and if Hegseth doesn't go, he's going to cost American lives at some point.
And the thing to also realize is that the safety, the stability of the world really depends on these people.
Yes.
Because the United States still, even though Trump has, I think, lost his position as leader of the free world, the reality is it's still the most powerful military in the world. People still do rely on it for stability.
And here's a scary thought. America is still the largest military in the world, but in the last 10 years, this actually came up in the meeting today, and I think it was accurate, where China has the most significant military expansion and modernization program possibly in world history. And it's ongoing. Russia's never going to catch up to the United States in tech, but China might. They have the money, they have the enough smart people, and that's what it takes. You can't just have smart people and just have money. You need both. China has both. So they've got some naval ships that are very impressive. Some of their jets are very impressive. So will this sort of foolish incompetence and destruction of trust, possibly destruction of alliances if Trump carries through with his withdrawal from NATO, will China be the next dominant superpower in the world because America just decided that we wanted to be idiots and give it up?
Yeah. And speaking of China, and we are near the end of the program here, just a few notes as we kind of draw things to a conclusion here tonight. A couple weeks ago, we had Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, on. In that interview, I did invite Max to come back to participate in a face-to-face discussion / debate with Grant Abraham of the United Party of Canada. Max said that he would do it, but then when the invitation was again extended yesterday, he declined. So very disappointing that he has decided not to come and participate in that. We'll talk more about that maybe tomorrow night. Grant Abraham also disappointed, posting on social media about it. And of course, Bernier complaining that he's not being allowed to participate in the other leaders' debates, and then now canceling this one. We're told that he's just too busy. There may be other reasons, but that is the reason we were given. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow night in more depth. And related to the debates, yesterday we saw Mark Carney flip-flop, first saying he was going to participate in the French language debate, then flipping or flopping, saying no, he's not, just issuing a statement that he's not because of the $75,000 fee, which I didn't know they were going to charge the leaders to participate in that. So he then said he wouldn't. Bizarre. I don't know why they would charge them at all. They should be making money off advertising on television, but regardless. And so today, Poilievre came out from the conservative side, the gentleman you saw Mike, in the speech there earlier, saying we'll pay Carney's $75,000 fee.
Yeah.
Just show up and debate us in the French language debate.
When you're talking about national political figures in a nation of,
Yeah.
the size of Canada, you would think that $75,000 is not a hurdle.
Yeah, so there's something else going on there as well. I think that's a big misstep by Mr. Carney.
Yeah.
Debate, like, let's go. So we'll see what happens there. Or we can host it right here. I will not charge you anything. We will do it for free. Okay, right here. And then I told you guys, because Polyev didn't get a security clearance. We've had these reports from CSIS and the RCMP about foreign influence and infiltration into the government, foreign money. Everybody's kept saying it's China, it's China, it's China, and there is Chinese influence there for sure. But what came out today? What did I tell you all? I said, you wait. When the election comes, the other shoe will drop, and it dropped today. You're going to hear more about this. Polyev connected through the CSIS report today. They're saying that his leadership was helped when he won the leadership of the Conservative Party by influence from India. India. Not that surprising, especially given what Trudeau went through with the assassinations here on Canadian soil, the Khalistani separatists, all of those issues that we've talked about on this program. I told you I didn't know which country. I wasn't sure what. I'm actually a little bit surprised it's India, but it makes sense. So there's that. We're going to hear a lot more about that. I guarantee you. This is Polyev's Achilles heel. Mark my words. The Liberals will make real hay with this. So we're going to watch all that as well. And then, Mike, tonight, I think your assessment of where this is all going to go with Trump and this security breach, I think it's pretty accurate. I think we're gonna hear more about this though.
The only bright note that I've been seeing lately is that Trump's popularity has taken a nosedive. He started out with a net positive. I don't think he was over 50% approval, but he had a higher approval than disapproval on Inauguration Day back in January. It's gone down almost 14% since then, so he is grossly underwater right now. He's done a lot of things that made a lot of Americans mad, including people who voted for him. So at some point, even Trump will lose the ability to what would you say when you threat but nobody believes you? He will lack legitimacy at some point. So he'll continue to threaten because that's what he does. But at some point, it'll become so obvious that his support has weakened so far that his threats don't mean anything. Hopefully we'll get there at some point. I see that as the best way out because it'll just kind of neuter him and the adults in the room can start doing their thing again. But I don't know. The adults in the room have demonstrated that they lack courage, so maybe we need different adults.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts as we approach April 2nd, which he says is Liberation Day for the United States, although we're seeing even over the last 24 hours, he's indicating there may be now some exceptions to some of the tariffs coming up next month. We'll see how that plays out.
He plays those stupid games too.
Yeah. But it's the uncertainty, you don't know what's coming. That's as bad as the tariffs, maybe even worse in some ways, because nobody knows what to do when it comes to planning or investing. This is terrible for the economy. Just this craziness back and forth. So we're working toward that. And then, on Friday, a little preview, I have something special for a Maverick Midnight Matinee, the movie that we're going to run on Friday. And I think you guys are going to like it. It's going to be related in a way to the Vances visiting Greenland. So I'm excited to bring that to you guys on Friday evening as well. So there you go. All right. Anything else you want to add tonight, Mike, before we sign off?
No, I want to go back to that same thing of we're in dangerous times right now. And you have to act with courage and morality, and some sense of what's right. And yeah, don't be intimidated.
Yeah, indeed. Takes courage, and got to stand up to the mob. And that's what we're all about here, too, trying to do the right thing. Always use your superpowers for good, never for evil. That's the Maverick way. And with that, folks, love you all. And we will see you back here tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.